apple cider vinegar is a fantastic ingredient. It's locally made, it's delicious, it's a brilliant preserving agent. A lot of people think it's got health benefits as well. In this video, we'll learn how to make it. Hello, welcome to English Country Life. Welcome to the kitchen and welcome to making vinegar. This is a white wine vinegar that we've made from our own elderflower wine. But today we're going to make a cider vinegar. The process is the same, but vinegar is a vitally important ingredient in living a self-reliant life. It's a fantastic flavour, superb for preserving things like pickles and chutneys. Can be used in cleaning. A lot of people even think things like cider vinegar have health benefits. So let's look at how do you make your own vinegar. Come on. In this jar we have a vinegar culture. At the bottom is vinegar. It was originally elderflower wine. The white material at the top is called mother of vinegar, and that's a culture that includes a form of bacteria called acetobacteria. And acetobacteria takes in alcohol, and in the presence of air, and that's quite important, we'll come to that later, the acetobacteria converts that alcohol into acetic acid, and acetic acid is the active ingredient of vinegar. We go to great lengths when making homebrew to keep out acetobacteria, which is carried by the vinegar fly, which is why we use things like airlocks when we're making homemade wine. But when we're making vinegar, we choose to deliberately introduce it. So this is a completed culture of white wine vinegar. I'm going to use some of the mother that's in there to start a culture of cider vinegar. And we'll work through the whole process together to understand how that works. So the first thing we're going to need, and perhaps the most difficult to obtain to make a cider vinegar, is the mother of vinegar. Now, because we've got a white wine vinegar culture going, we can take a piece of that mother and use it to start a new culture. And as you can see, it's quite a thick and surprisingly solid material. And when I first heard of making vinegar, I thought this material would be very soft and very delicate. Actually, it's like thick rubber. It's quite a strong material. But what we've done there is removed the entire mother from this vinegar culture. And we can take a piece of that and start our cider vinegar culture. So that's what we're going to do next. In order to brew vinegar, we need a brewing vessel. It mustn't be metal, because vinegar is an acid. And acid attacks metal. You can use glass, like this one. You can use ceramic, but nothing metal. This vessel, I think, will be ideal. It has a tap at the bottom, so that once we've 2/3 filled it with vinegar, if I want some vinegar, I can draw it off from the tap without disturbing the floating mother of vinegar that'll be on top. And if we disturb that mother of vinegar, it can sink to the bottom. And if it sinks to the bottom, what that means is that it no longer has access to oxygen, and it needs that oxygen to convert the alcohol to vinegar. Now, while we're on the subject of access to oxygen, I've removed the lid from this vessel. We will give it a covering, but it won't be an airtight covering. So, we have our brewing vessel, we have mother of vinegar. If we didn't have mother of vinegar, what we could do is put some cider in this vessel and leave it by an open window for a few days, and along would come a vinegar fly, settle on the surface of the cider, and the acetobacteria that it naturally carries on its body would begin the process without actually introducing the acetobacteria ourselves. But that can take a long time, and the results are a little bit uncertain. So if you have access to mother of vinegar, it is a much quicker and more certain way of starting the process off. In this first photograph, you can see a small vinegar fly, almost centrally in the image, that I captured in a small jar of open cider left by a windowsill a number of years ago. They're not huge, they're almost sort of midge-sized, tiny little black flies. And in this second photograph, you can see that same vinegar fly at about the sort of 9 o'clock position in the jar. And there's a film over the surface of the cider, a sort of translucent, almost opaque film that's beginning to cover the surface of the cider. And that film is mother of vinegar forming naturally. We have a brewing vessel then. We have a source of acetobacteria, either mother of vinegar or we've captured a vinegar fly, which is quite an art form, but it can certainly be done. I've done it. Now we need some alcohol. 10 years ago, we planted an orchard here. Still a young orchard, but it's producing a decent crop of apples. And a decent crop of apples can produce a decent crop of cider. If you'd like to see how we make cider from our own apples, please leave us a comment down below. For me, cider making is a rite of passage. I'm a Devon boy. Every farm vied with each other to make the best cider where I grew up. So cider making is something that's dear to my heart. I must make a note to any of the Americans that are watching, when we say cider, we mean alcoholic cider, hard cider to you guys. To us, if it's not got alcohol in, it's apple juice. There's no difference between cloudy apple juice and clear apple juice and all the rest of it. That's just apple juice to us. Cider is alcoholic. Right, let's take a look at how we introduce the mother of vinegar into the cider and start the process of vinegar making. The thing with vinegar making is you don't want to overwhelm one ingredient with another. So we don't want to fill this thing right to the top and then bung in some mother of vinegar, because it won't work very well. What we want to do is put in a small amount of cider, get the process started, and then add more cider as the alcohol is consumed, probably about once a month. So to start with, I'm just going to put 2 bottles of cider into my brewing vessel. The mother of vinegar creates itself as the acetobacteria works, and for some reason, which I've never fully understand, it sort of lays itself down, as you can see, in layers. So what we need to do is take a pair of scissors and cut off a small piece of one of those layers. There we have it. One piece of mother of vinegar, more than sufficient to get our cider vinegar started. What we now have to do is get this piece of mother of vinegar to float on the surface of that cider. And that's tricky because it has a tendency to want to sink. I've only found one way that usually works for me, and that's a wine cork. And what I do is wrap a full circumference of the cork in the mother and then secure it in some way. You can use a piece of string, that works absolutely fine. I have been known to use a copper nail because I have some, no other reason. Just push it in like that, lightly, and it's not steel so it won't rust, and we can simply float that on the surface of the cider. We take our mother of vinegar wrapped around a cork and lower it gently onto the surface of our homemade cider. That will float there and we'll keep it with access to plenty of fresh air in a warm environment, and that will soon breed up and begin the process of converting the alcohol into vinegar. The vinegar now needs to sit for about a month in order to get the process of the bacteria turning the alcohol into acid to really get going. During that time I wanted to have plenty of air, but I don't want dust or insects getting in the top. So I put a bit of muslin over the neck of the jar, secure it with an elastic band, and that lets plenty of air in but keeps other things out. Vinegar making works best in the dark, so I wrap some brown paper around my brewing vessel and tuck it away in a dark cupboard. Once a month, what I need to do is check it and add more cider. Because the bacteria is a living thing, it will starve to death when it's consumed all the cider it's got. And monthly is about right to top it up. So what I do is I take the lid off and I run the cider gently down the side of the glass so it goes in underneath the mother without swamping it. You don't want to dump it in hard. Feed it once a month. After a few months you can start drawing off the cider vinegar from the tap at the bottom. And we'll look at that in a future episode. And that's how we establish a new vinegar culture. Future episodes will cover feeding the vinegar, drawing the vinegar off, testing it for strength, pasteurising it to stop the process if you want to do that. Not everybody does. You can even look at how to create your own litmus solution to test acidity in your own home. If this sort of content is interesting to you, can you spare 5 seconds? Give us a thumbs up down below. Leave us a comment if there are other things you want to see. Do you want to see more on preserving? Would you want to see other things like soap making, dubbin making, other household products? You tell us, we'll try and cover it in a video. If you want to hear about all the videos we make, hit the subscribe button and the little bell icon next to it and you'll hear every time we post a new one. But whatever you do, come back and see us soon. Take care.